Good day everyone, this is our midterm project about art gallery featuring Henry Moore. Henry Moore was a renowned British sculptor and artist, widely regarded as one of the most influential sculptors of the 20th century. He is best known for his large-scale, abstract sculptures often inspired by the human figure, nature and organic forms. His full name is Henry Spencer Moore. He is born on July 30, 1898 and died on August 31, 1986. His best known sculptures are Reclining Figure and King and Queen. Early life and education. Born as the seventh of 8 children in a working class family, Moore developed an early interest in art, inspired by stories of Michelangelo and a strong sense of community in his hometown. In 1919, he attended Leeds School of Art on an ex-serviceman's grant following his service in World War I. Studies at the Royal College of Art, 1921 to 1924. Moore moved to London to study at the Royal College of Art, where he was deeply influenced by the work of classical and non-Western art. He explored materials like stone and wood, developing techniques such as direct carving. World War I impact. Served in the British Army and was gassed during the Battle of Cambrai. This traumatic experience and exposure to the physicality of war deeply influenced his work, emphasizing human resilience and vulnerability. Marriage and career beginnings. He married Irina Radetzky, a fellow artist, in 1929. Henry Moore taught at the Royal College of Art and was part of the British avant-garde community, where he became acquainted with figures like Barbara Hepworth and Ben Nicholson. Artistic influences. First, classical and non-Western art, inspired by Mexican, African, and oceanic sculptures, which influenced his focus on abstract forms and organic shapes. Studied ancient and Renaissance art, but preferred to modernize the human figure by stripping it to its essence. Second, Surrealism and Cubism. His exposure to artists like Pablo Picasso and Joan Miro shaped his abstract, surrealistic approach to form. And third, landscape and natural forms. Moore was influenced by the English countryside, which often inspired the undulating, rounded forms in his work. Contributions to the art world. First, modernist sculpture pioneer. Moore revolutionized sculpture by introducing abstraction and semi-abstraction, moving away from traditional representational forms. His works often combined organic and geometric shapes, inspired by nature and the human form. Second, innovative use of materials. Moore worked with a wide range of materials, including bronze, stone, and wood. His preference for direct carving, where the artist works directly on the material rather than from a model, gave his sculptures a sense of immediacy and connection to the medium. Themes of humanity and nature. His works often explored universal themes like the relationship between the human figure and the landscape, as well as notions of protection, maternity, and endurance. The reclining figure became one of his signature motifs, often reflecting harmony with nature. And fourth is public art. Moore's large-scale sculptures were designed to engage with outdoor spaces, becoming iconic fixtures in public parks, plazas, and universities worldwide. Notable examples include Reclining Figure, 1951, and Knife Edge Two-Piece of 1962. So these are the reclining figures made by Henry Moore. The Reclining Figure, 1929, Reclining Figure, 1938, the Reclining Figure of 1951, and the large Reclining Figure of 1983. History of the artwork Reclining Figure. Period of creation. The series began in the 1930s and evolved through the 1940s, continuing into the post-war period of the 1950s and 1960s. Moore revisited the reclining figure motif throughout his career, using it as a central theme to explore abstraction and the relationship between form and space. This was a time marked by the interwar period, World War II, and the subsequent post-war reconstruction. The trauma of war and the human resilience inspired much of Moore's work. Relevant historical events. After World War I, Europe experienced cultural and political upheavals. Many artists, including Moore, sought new ways to express the human condition and redefine modern art. Influenced by the rise of Surrealism and Cubism, Moore began abstracting the human form, moving away from traditional classical representation. During World War II, Moore served as a war artist, creating evocative drawings of people sheltering in the London Underground during air raids. These experiences deepened his understanding of human vulnerability and strength, themes reflected in his sculptural works. Subject and content of the artwork. The sculpture is recognizable as a human form. The head has a notch, like a claw. The narrow torso has two dangling breasts. The left arm rests on the ground, while the right arm and ribbon-like backbone are linked to a pelvis resting on the ground, from which to one long bone-like limb extends to one side. Themes: humanity and nature. Moore often drew inspiration from natural forms like rocks, bones, and landscapes, which is evident in the rounded and organic shapes of his reclining figures. These forms evoke a sense of harmony between humanity and nature. Second, universalism and timelessness. The abstraction in Moore's work moves beyond individual identity, representing the universal human experience. The reclining figure's pose conveys a sense of timeless repose and introspection. Symbolism and messages. Fertility and nurture. The reclining pose is often associated with rest, peace, and the nurturing qualities of the feminine form, symbolizing fertility and the connection to earth.
History of the artwork. Artist Henry Morey. Year in 1952. King and Queen in 1952 to 53. Context of creation. Period of creation. Post-World War II atmosphere. Created during the early 1950s, King and Queen reflect the post-war period's introspection underbuilding. Henry Morey, like many artists of his time, sought to address universal human themes like grappling with the trauma and devastation of World War II. Relevant historical event. Morey was a leading figure in modern sculpture during this time. His abstraction resonated with a global shift in art toward exploring universal themes rather than specific cultural or political narratives. The King and Queen reflect modernism focused on simplified form and emotional resonance, departing from literal representation. The early 1950s, marked by the tensions of the Cold War, this atmosphere of uncertainty influenced Moore's depiction of the figures who, despite their symbolic power, appear anthropomorphic and fragile. Subject and content of the artwork. King and Queen is a bronze sculpture by Henry Morey, designed in 1952. It depicts two figures, one male and one female, seated beside each other on a bench, both facing slightly to the left. It is Morey's only sculpture depicting a single pair of adult figures. Morey records suggest it was originally known as two-seated figure. Themes. Number 1. Personal and universal. The figure represents a regal couple seated side by side, embodying both authority and vulnerability. Unlike traditions, portrayals, or monarchy, Morris' king and queen are abstracted, stripped, and grandeur and embodied with a sense of human frailty and dignity. Number 2. Companionship and duality. The pairing of the king and queen highlights a relationship of mutual support. Their physical proximity, and shared posture suggest unity and partnership, while their differing expressions and form may symbolize contrasting roles or characteristics. Symbolism and messages. Power and responsibility. The crowns of the figures emphasize their status and the burden of leadership. However, their skeletal and simplified form hint the weight of authority, portraying rulers as both powerful and burdened by their responsibility.